Hi, Nancy. I love this new voice that we have on Zoom now. This woman reminds everybody that this meeting is being recorded. So how are you? Well, you are now being recorded.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Had a good week. It was my birthday yesterday, so
yay! Happy birthday again.
Thank you. Yeah, another year older, and hopefully this year will be a little less impacted by coronavirus, so we can keep our fingers crossed for that.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. Well, we've got a lot of news to cover, as always, in the second half of the show, but we do have a guest joining us from India, and we don't want to keep her up. She's already up very late to talk to us, and we really do appreciate that. And we're going to be talking about cricket. So be warned, because everybody who follows this show will know that it's one of my favorite sports. So I'm looking forward to our conversation with Radha Gupta, who's joining us from New Delhi. Radha, thank you so much.
Hello, thank you for having me. And I'm always up to chat about cricket, whatever time of the day.
Good woman. I love to hear that. Yes, so there was this little old test match that went on in England last week between India and England. Now, there were great expectations from both sides, I think it would be fair to say, because there are not many test matches for women, not enough. We can talk about that as well. But Radha, let's start with your impressions of that match, because it was disappointing that it ended in a draw, but it was extremely competitive, wasn't it?
It was, and that is just clear signs that we'd love to see more of it. There's definitely a market for it. I think there was a path where there would have been a result. And the fact that it was competitive until the last session of the final day proves that it was anybody's game. And I think that is peak test cricket, where everything is so unpredictable. And yes, it is a draw. And, we'd look back on this and on paper, we'd see that no team got the win. But I think if you go back and watch the game, or if people who have watched the game, or you hear about the game, it was one for the ages.
Yes. And of course, it does rain in England. So we have to, excuse them for that. Because we would expect rain at some point. But just rewind a little bit, Radha, if you would just tell us a little bit about your background and interest in sports, and specifically in women's sports. What do you do now?
Yeah, I think growing up, I've always played a lot of sports, and just generally watching them on television, it was always men that I was watching, or I'd open my newspapers and it was always men's sports that was being covered. And it took me a long time, and I'm a little bit, that's one of my regrets, that it took me till I was 17-ish to realize that, hey, I don't see women like me playing on TV. And why is that? I know for a fact that there is a Women's World Cup. Women play football World Cups, cricket World Cups and whatnot, but I'm just not able to see that. So a year ago, I decided to start my own platform known as She Talks Ball. It is just a small platform where I try to cover women's sports and provide accessible content and coverage for everyone. And I think that's one way where you can see them, you can be them. And that's something that I would have liked to see when I was maybe 12 or 13. And I'm hoping to kind of contribute to the world of women's sports in this little way.
I love that. We're all pulling in the same direction, aren't we, Nancy?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's so great to see so many different platforms. And, I think in women's sport, there's a lot of collaboration as well, because like you said, we've all got the same aim, basically. So yeah, it's great to see.
Did you follow the cricket? We know, Radha, you and I have a mission here, because Nancy has not been to many cricket games, and we need to get her more into the sport. So between us, I think we have to prove that she should be out there. I know she loves football, but we can talk about that another time. But cricket, Nancy, did you follow?
I did follow it. I can't say I watched too much of it, but I was following it, and I was I think kind of starting from before it started as well. There was the whole controversy that the pitch had already been used. They'd given them a used I don't know if pitch is the right word. Yes. But yeah, they'd kind of given them not the best facilities, which is always kind of a bad start. But then, I was kind of watching how, despite all of that, obviously everyone was very entertained by it, and it was a very kind of good, I think, profile for women's cricket, and especially with the 100 coming up as well this summer, it's kind of quite a good lead into that almost.
Most definitely, drawing people's attention to it. What I liked about it, Radha, and I don't know if you follow the BBC, but after I think it was the 5 p.m., I think it was the PM on Radio 4, when they went to the sports news, it was the top story because it was a test match, and which it would be if it was the men's. As you know, Nancy, they would automatically go to that as the first story if the men were playing in a test match, but they did it for the women. Radha, were you able to, do you listen to any of that, or do you have really good coverage in India of international cricket generally, and particularly if India are playing?
Yeah, I like to think that we do have a good amount of coverage since cricket is just, runs through the blood of most Indians here. So in fact, I was driving home this evening and on the radio, we had this cricket expert and he was kind of breaking down a couple of matches because, the India are playing the World Test Championship final as well. We have the series in England from the women. And it was in our local language in Hindi. And I was very, very pleased to hear that he was breaking down every innings of the test match and people were sending in questions. And he was saying, I've watched a lot of women's cricket and here were my thoughts. I think here is where we can improve. This is what the intent should have been by the administration, giving them a fresh wicket, things like that. I was really happy to see that. And to cover it in our local language where the masses can understand and the masses can start following, I think that was a big win for us. And that just shows you how a little bit of intent by the boards to have a test match take place can result in a lot of snowball effect in terms of coverage and appreciation of the game.
That's fantastic. And I think it's only growing. So I think this test match, was significant and clearly it drew a lot of attention to it. Let's just talk about the game itself, Radha. Give us your thoughts and analysis of particularly of the Indian side, obviously, but also of the England team.
Yeah, I think as people, I'm sure you'd agree, who follow women's sports in general, it's hard to hate anyone or it's hard to hate a team. I was rooting for everyone. Obviously, as an Indian, I wanted my team to do well and my players to do well. And I think it's safe to say that this test match was one for the debutants. We saw 6 debutants, 1 from England, 5 from India. And I think the reason there were 5 from India is because India hasn't played a test match in 7 years. And that is one place to start. That is what we need to make sure never happens again. I feel like we need to have consistent test cricket, at least 2 or 3 matches every year. I think simply put 1 in every series and we can build from there. So I think starting off this test match, I didn't know what to expect. In my 5 years of watching women's cricket, I've never seen the Indian women in whites, which again is a shocking sentence to say that, right? Yeah. And we have a team of youngsters. We have Shafali Verma up top, who's a 17-year-old going directly from T20s to a test match format. Again, it was a mystery package. Didn't know what was going to come out of that. I think overall, looking back at the 4 days, India take a lot of positives in terms of morale, especially the way the test match ended, how we were able to pull out a draw out of an imminent loss. I think we have that 1 week to reflect on what we can do better, what the matchups are, let's say Shafali versus Catherine Brunt, and certain matchups like that were very, very visible in the test match is something that we can work on in the ODIs. But I think overall, it was one for the debutants. We had Deepti Sharma do really well in 2 innings, Shafali Verma, Sneh Rana, who's a little bit older. She's 27, but it's the first time she's donned the whites. And she took 3 wickets. She made 80 not out on the final day, which is something that I will remember probably forever. And on the other hand, of course, Sophia Dunkley in the first innings with the bat, and Sophie Eccleston, who just is a nightmare for us Indians. Every time she came on to bowl, I was like, not again. She single-handedly caused a collapse for our batters, not once, but twice. And it was quite something.
Yes, it really was. Yeah, credit to her, that's for sure. And so a lot to take away from it then, as you say, because being a test match, a rare test match, and your girls didn't have that kind of test match practice. Clearly, if you've not seen them playing white before, that is a lot for them to take away because, we see how powerful they are in other formats of the game.
It's true. You think about it, and the latest T20 World Cup, we were in the final. And the previous ODI World Cup, we were in the final. So clearly we are a cricketing powerhouse. And it's unfortunate that we're doing a lot of this despite the kind of system we have in India, or despite the lack of intent that our board has in supporting the women. So I'm hoping for the day to come where we can say this all happened because of the support that we were given from our own administration. And I think until then, we're going to have to keep fighting. And another format just means another avenue for our team to explore, to work on. India generally favor the longer format. We could see that Deepti Sharma, who's just 22 or 23, really settled in well into this long format. So it's just a question of giving them practice, giving them more red ball domestic cricket in India itself. And I think we can build from there. There is great potential for India and for any other country who wants to get into this format. And I believe with good marketing, there will be great viewership as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You know, they need to play more at home then, don't they? I mean, that's going to be the key to success internationally in future in the test format.
Always. I think it always begins, from your backyard. You look at Australia and their domestic structure is so good, and that's why their team is so successful. So you're spot on with that.
Yeah, that's totally true. Absolutely. Your assessment of the England team, though, because obviously tremendous depth of experience on that squad.
It's an incredible side. And, you look at the bowling, you look at the batting, every player that comes up has the capability to deliver. And it's a question of how do you tackle them as a team? Because if you pick on the individuals, they're going to win the battle most of the time. So I think, right from up top, Tammy Vermont, Lauren Winfield Hill set the tone early in the first day where they had a good long partnership. I think it was about 1.5 hours. I was in front of the screen and we hadn't got a wicket. And I was saying, is this how it is going to end for us? Because that's not pretty. And I think, of course, with the bowling, we have Catherine Brunt, who I don't want to see her retire ever. She's she's exceptional. And of course, Nat Siver, the all-rounder. She's one of the players I really look up to. I think she's fantastic and a great contributor for the team. So I think this England side has had relatively more experience in test matches. But again, I think it's about a year or 2 years since they played one. And I think they have the capability to gel really well as a team. They play a lot of domestic cricket. They play a lot of franchise cricket, be it in the WBBL or the Kia Super League or, the Rachel Heyhoe Flynn Trophy, whatever that might be. And I think that's where India lack a little bit. Apart from our domestic tournaments, we don't get to rub shoulders with other internationals. And if we can start picking up on that and start, as we've mentioned, a couple of our, or at least 5 of our players will play in the 100, that's a great start. That's a great boost to our youngsters. And, those youngsters coming out of that month-long tournament are going to be changed individuals, I think.
That's very, very true. It will be a wonderful experience for them. We can't not mention Heather Knight, Captain Heather Knight, who was picking up her 100th game as captain, and she almost made her century. Just got spoilt there, just cut short by your team, Radha, but another captain's innings from her.
She's exceptional. And I think we look at her bowling, she got a couple of wickets. We look at her batting.
Couple of wickets, yeah.
Yeah, we look at her batting, she made 95. And I honestly think that contribution is equal to a contribution of 100. So I'd give her an honorary 100 to that. I think one contribution by a leader that we often miss out on was the bowling changes, was the over rate. It's something that is a constant decision process, like a decision-making process on the field, especially in a test match where for 4 days, out of 4 days, 3 days was England bowling, which meant that Heather Knight had to constantly rest her bowlers, change her bowlers, keep putting pressure, changing field positions. And that is something that only a few people who have leadership qualities can do. And Heather Knight is a true gem for England.
Yes, no, absolutely true. That's a wonderful assessment and a very generous assessment, Radha. I could talk cricket all day, all night and tomorrow, but we're keeping you up very, very late for this. And I'm mindful that Nancy wants to talk about some football as well. What did you have in mind, Nancy?
Like I was saying, I think it's quite an interesting period for football, at least over here anyway, because we're kind of in between the season, but we've got the Olympics coming up, which Team GB will quite a rarity to have Britain compete in the women's football competition. And the NWSL as well. I don't know if Chris, you managed to see, we had one of our players, Ebony Salmon. She's gone over to play for Racing Louisville.
Yes.
And against, I think, was it Houston Dash who won the Challenge Cup only last month or the month before. It was just, I thought it was a really impressive performance from her because she had kind of been playing for one of the weaker teams in the Women's Super League and had obviously been really impressive. But just kind of came on the pitch, 60 seconds, scored a really amazing goal. So
there we go. And it's a great chance for her to make her mark with a brand new team. This is their first season in the NWSL here, brand new in Kentucky there, racing Louisville. Named because Louisville is the home of the Kentucky Derby, of course, but it will be very interesting to see how that team grows now. Any thoughts on that, Radha? Because I know you followed the NWSL too.
Yeah, I do. I've actually followed it since 2017. I don't know why I've been giving up my sleep for 4 years, but it's just that kind of a league. I think, if you look at the 2019 US women's national team that won the World Cup, all of them played in the NWSL. And that's what I tell to my friends. That's what I tell the people who are like, what league do I get into? I said, get into the NWSL. You've got actual stars here and you've got competitive teams. You don't know who's going to turn up with the game-winning goal, as we've seen with Ebony Salmon, who just stepped on the field and made a great contribution. I think as a 20-year-old, a very bold move to move, across the Atlantic, leaving your family, leaving everything comfortable, leaving your little bubble. And I feel like this is really going to help her grow. The NWSL, I think, is a very good league. I enjoy giving up my sleep for it. And I think that going forward, it's just week 5, but going forward, we're going to see the table be closer than ever. And I can't wait to see who comes out on top.
Well, I'd love to have you back on the show, Radha, to talk about that and to talk about the selection, because we're going to have the USWNT. That team is going to be named for the Olympics any moment now.
Yep.
I don't think there'll be too many surprises if you follow the American team at all. But we've got a couple of players on the bench with injuries. One, both recovering from injury. So it'll be interesting to see. I think they probably will travel, but we'll look at this another time. I'd love to have you back on the show to talk more about this. Would you spend time? Would you stay up late for us?
Of course,
another time.
Always.
Fantastic. I love it. Radha, thank you so much indeed. It's been great to talk to you, and I look forward to having you come on as a regular contributor. I'd love to collaborate with you with what you're doing with She Talks Ball.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. I think, again, as Nancy mentioned, we all seem to collaborate and, help each other, boost each other in creating content for women's sports and creating accessible coverage for it as well. So I'm happy to chat women's football, women's cricket, anytime.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again. It's been great to talk to you. Stay safe and stay in touch.
All right. You too. Take care.
Thank you. Well, Nancy, we are going to get you to a cricket game. I know there's a few things happening in the football world for you now, which is slightly distracting.
Yeah, well, and it's men's sport as well. So we've got the Euros happening at the moment, which I can't. I mean, there's plenty of people here interested in it that I can talk about it with every single day. So I won't take up too much time on a sport podcast talking about the Euros. But yeah, that's been happening at the moment. But yeah, no, the 100 opening matches, I think the 21st of July. So I'm hoping to get down to that. So that will be, it won't be my first cricket event, but it will be my first women's cricket event. So
there we go.
Really
I expect to hear a lot more about that then nearer the time. And also that's going to be just on the eve of when the Olympics start too. So it's going to be a very busy July. Now we've covered cricket, so we're going to move on to the other items of news, because a lot of news came out earlier this week from Tokyo. A few announcements. So let's talk about the crowds first, because they've announced how many people can attend events. Nancy, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so this is, I think, something that's been people have been hoping that fans will be allowed to come in, because it's been quite a few months since they've said that international fans won't be allowed in. So kind of everyone's been pinning their hopes on domestic fans being able to attend. And yeah, today the organising committee announced that up to 10,000 domestic fans will be able to attend events. So that's about 50% capacity of all venues. Obviously that depends, I think 50% is the limit. So if you've got a venue that has, a capacity of 14,000, there'll only be 7,000 people there. So up to 10,000 fans if there's like a bigger venue. So yeah, I think this is kind of obviously probably a massive boost for everyone, especially the athletes, because as we've seen for the past year and a half, sport just isn't quite the same when you don't have spectators in the, watching. And I think athletes, it definitely gives them a boost, just whether they're kind of, from your country or not. It's just so great to hear people in the crowd cheering you on.
However, sorry to interject here, Nancy, but I've heard that they're not going to be allowed to make any noise.
Well, yeah, so that's, of course, then you've got
cheering or nothing vocal. They have to wear masks the whole time. So while they're going to be present, there's not going to be the atmosphere without them being vocal, is there?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's the rules, and 100% if that's the way of holding the game safely, then that should be the case. But I am quite intrigued to see how they do kind of implement that or enforce it. Especially maybe if you've got, I think Japanese fans cheering on a Japanese athlete, that could, maybe be quite hard to control your emotions maybe. So it'd be interesting to see how, if they do enforce that strictly, or if that's just something that they kind of try and advise people not to be cheering and shouting.
You can't imagine them being quiet when Naomi Osaka is playing for a medal.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, sport is it provokes emotion. Like nothing else really. So like you said, I think if there's a medal favorite, like a massive athlete like Naomi Osaka, and she's going for gold, they're probably going to make a little bit of noise. So yeah, it's, obviously those rules are going to be in place, but I think everyone's probably just quite grateful that there can be some spectators allowed in, and it's not going to be kind of a behind closed doors event.
We're going to have to explain why it sounds like there's drums playing in the background on your end, Nancy.
I'm not sure. Does it sound like that?
Yes, it does. It sounds like we've got a drumming background. So that's what's happening. Yeah, it's on Nancy. Nancy's trying to be multi-talented here and do two things at once. But anyway,
that's really weird. Is it like actual drums, or is it?
It sounds like the tapping, like something's happening there, and not quite sure what it is.
Is it happening? Is it happening now?
No, it's not. See,
okay.
There you go. Whatever it was,
it might. It might have been me looking at the story, clicking to look at the story.
Clicking. Yes, because you're using an open mic there, would pick up those sounds. But anyway, we mentioned Naomi Osaka, so let's talk about that. She has said she's not going to play at Wimbledon, which we saw that coming, but she is going to be competing for her home nation in Tokyo.
Yeah, so I think no one was quite sure when Osaka was going to come back to playing after what happened at the French Open, when she didn't really want to participate in media duties and then withdrew fully from the tournament. So she's been taking some time out since then, and has pulled out of Wimbledon, which is starting at the end of this month. But I think it would have always been really impossible for her to meet, to not play at the Olympics, it being a home games. It's something that happens every 4 years as opposed to Grand Slam tournaments, which kind of for every year. I'm not too surprised that she hasn't that she's playing at the tournament. And also the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, they've also confirmed that Osaka, she won't have any obligation to speak to the media. So that is kind of where the fallout began with
press. Right, but those in press conferences, but she is obliged to go through the mix zone, right? Even though she's not obliged to do any interviews, which seems a bit odd to me. And it seems like it's setting a precedent. And I thought this when we saw this happen in Roland Garros at the French Open. Is this going to be the start of athletes saying, I don't feel like talking to the press today? No obligations, don't have to.
Yeah, see, I don't know what will happen, because I don't know as well. I don't know for the Olympics if it's going to be a mixed zone as we know it anyway because of COVID. Like, I don't know if it's going to be some kind of virtual event or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I don't know if that's also going to have an impact. But I don't know. I suppose the Olympics are always quite different to. Obviously, the mix zone is normally the main way of the media getting quotes. I don't normally know how. Maybe a winner would normally have a press conference after, but then I'm not quite sure. Maybe it varies from sport to sport.
Yeah, it sounds like there are actual obligations to do an interview according to the IOC. That they don't have to conduct an interview. So this is all under Olympic rules, and it'll be very interesting to follow this to see what actually does happen. And to your point about the mixed zones, which we've talked about on the show before, whether that will be virtual or real in person. And how that will play out. So, I think this could be the start of a new trend, and it'll be interesting to see whether the international federations or the national federations do things their own way, because I know a lot of NFs do actually try and control their athletes and their relation, and what the media ask them, and they escort them everywhere. So, the Olympics is always different. So we will follow that and keep you posted here and let you know what we think about this. We'll have Peggy Shin back on the show after as well, because Peggy, who's been here a couple of times, she's actually heading out there for teamusa.org. So we'll be catching up with her and getting her views on what's actually happening on the ground. More Olympic news. It's all Olympic news this week, apart from the cricket, isn't it? Yeah,
I think that's probably going to be the case for the next month, so. Really, and then obviously the few weeks with the Olympics taking place, because it is really starting to heat up now. I think kind of preparations. This is so Laurel Hubbard has been confirmed as set to be confirmed as the first transgender athlete at the Olympic Games. So she's qualified. She's a weightlifter. We have talked about her on a few times on the show. So she's not kind of like an unknown athlete. She's been successful at kind of continental games like the Pacific Games. So she has qualified for the Olympic Games and will become the first transgender athlete to compete at the Olympics. It's worth remembering as well that it's not kind of the rules haven't just been changed. So I think it's that transgender athletes have been able to compete at the Olympics since Athens 2004. But she is just the first transgender athlete to qualify. So that's kind of the difference there.
Yeah, she will be representing New Zealand, of course.
Yeah, so will be representing New Zealand. So it's definitely going to be an Olympic game of firsts in that respect.
Yeah, it certainly is. And it will cause, no doubt, a little bit of chatter about transgender issues. This is a conversation that's going around the world, and it always ignites some debate. So we'll follow that. And there's a couple of stories I like about first Black British swimmer at the Olympics, and then we had the first Black woman, and that was Gupta mentioned Sophia Dunkley. She was the first Black woman to be playing for England, and we got the first Black woman to be swimming for the UK, for Team GB.
Yeah, some really kind of milestone achievements, which is obviously really positive for the diversification of sport. Sophia Dunkley, like you said, became the first Black woman to play Test cricket for England after appearing against India. And then Alice Deering, so she is, it's quite incredible, I think, actually, that there's never been a Black woman represent Team GB in swimming at the Olympics. And she is currently Britain's only Black elite swimmer. She actually swims as well in the is outdoor swimming, the marathon swimming events in. I remember Rio, literally
open water.
Yeah, open water. That's it, like really choppy sea swimming, which is, I always just find it incredibly impressive. She qualified this week. She qualified on Saturday. And we'll be heading to the Olympics. There's some real kind of trailblazing athletes this week. And again, like I said before, it's going to be, an Olympic Games that are kind of setting precedents for diversity in sport.
Yes, for sure. And we should give a shout out, because there's a lot of the teams have been named now. There was the swim trials, and the US swim trials that took place this past week, and then now it's track and field that's taking place, the athletics. And in England, there's been a number of teams announced, hasn't there, already? The rugby sevens was announced, as was here. The rugby sevens was named last week. And a shout out to Naya Tapper and Alona Meyer, who are co-hosts of the Leo's Den podcast with us. And Naya has long been one of our ambassadors, and they've both been named to the team. Not too much of a surprise, but still, it's great to have them confirmed. And also, we heard today that Nikki Daly, who's another one of our WiSP ambassadors, she's been named to the Irish hockey team. And Hayley Daniels, another of our ambassadors, she's been named to the Canadian canoe team. So, it's all go, go, go now. And as we heard from Angie Delgado, she's another one of our ambassadors and a US judoka. She's preparing for her first Olympic Games. So it's really hotting up, as you said now, Nancy, isn't it? We're really just gearing up now to the final countdown. The teams will be leaving before we know. In the next few weeks, the teams will be leaving, and we'll really get into that Olympic fever.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the last 2 weeks at work, I think I've been having media advisory emails for Team GB, announcements for every sport, just kind of consistently. Yes. That, it's really, I think the majority of athletes now know whether they're heading to the games or not. And it's obviously been such a tumultuous build up, having been postponed, and then there was still so much uncertainty about whether the games would take place. It wasn't a definite. So I think everyone will just be kind of breathing a sigh of relief that, if they've qualified, they've got to this point and managed to kind of keep training during lockdown, and then also that the games are still going ahead. So it's, it's obviously, it must have been just a very strained journey, I think, to this point.
Yes. Definitely. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we're waiting for the US soccer team to be named, which should be any time now. I'd imagine this week we will hear. What about other teams, women's soccer teams? Nancy, have you heard anything?
Yeah, I mean, Team GB, we named our team a couple of weeks ago now. I know the Netherlands, who I think are going to be a real force. Yes. They've named their team, and as always, kind of packed of talent. They've got Vivian Miedema and Mertens, who has been incredible for Barcelona this season. So they are one to watch. I'm trying to think if there's many other teams that I've seen announced, but yeah, I think everyone's just kind of waiting for the American team, really, because of course, it's not a women's football tournament without America as favourites. So yeah, I think everyone's kind of waiting for that with bated breath.
It's one hot squad. And the other thing I think it's going to come with this is the enormous pressure on the US team, the expectations. And it's not going to be easy. I mean, Sweden always give them a good fight, and obviously England, but also the Netherlands, as you mentioned, too. There are teams that are getting closer to being able to beat them. And as powerful a team as it is, I think it's going to be super competitive.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of those tournaments where there's not that many teams, and every team that is qualified is, you can't rightly there, they're the best in their continent or among the best on their continent, which means that every single game is going to be incredibly competitive. And it's, such a unique tournament, I think, because the men's football tournament isn't really seen as that prestigious. And, they've got kind of, they use their youth team. It's under 23 tournament compared to the women's team. It's quite rare that you've got those tournaments where the women's is more prestigious than the men's. So it's going to be really, I mean, I'm really, really looking forward to it. I'm not too sure how Team GB will do, but I'm very excited to watch it.
Well, you can always switch your allegiance for it temporarily to the US thing, Nancy. We'll have you.
I'm not sure if I'll be able to do that.
Awesome. Well, it's all hotting up, as we said, and we'll be following it with very keen interest over the next few weeks. So do stay tuned to the WiSP Sports Desk every week with Nancy and me. And we're going to jump off now because I know Nancy's going to donate for more birthday celebrations. But before she goes, remind everybody how they can find you on social media and Give Me Sport Women.
Yeah. So, all my work is on Give Me Sport Women, the website, which is, the website is, I always forget it, but I think it's givemesport.com/women's sport. And then on Twitter, I am Nancy_Gillen. So that's where I put most of my thoughts.
Okay, great. And we're, of course, at WiSP Sports on all your social media platforms and online at wisports.com, where you'll find the show notes and the links to the stories that we referred to here on the show. They're all at wisports.com. And we will be back, Nancy, next week. I'm sure we'll have a lot more to talk about with the build-up to the Olympics. It really is the countdown, the final countdown now. Really, really excited about it. But do check out all the other shows at WiSP Sports. You can find us on any podcast platform. That's all at WiSP Sports. So thanks, Nancy. Enjoy your evening celebration tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll be keeping it going for the whole week.
Thanks, Nancy. We'll see you this time next week for more of the WiSP Sports Desk. Until then, thank you for listening and helping us turn up the volume on women's sports. Goodbye for now.